Hey TYT, I'm Nomi Konst in Detroit for the first Women's Convention brought to you by the organizers of the Women's March. And we have one right here, Carmen Perez, a very familiar face. She is the co-founder of Justice League NYC and California now. And she is also the founder of The Gathering. And of course, co-founder of the Women's March. And so we're very honored to have you and for giving us this space here and for organizing.
Of course. Thank you for having me. And it's always a pleasure seeing you and talking to you.
So I've been very moved by this weekend. And I think so many other women who were moved at the Women's March who came here feel wanting that inspiration, because there's a lot of really bad things happening in the world right now with Trump at the local level. And so many folks, men and women, want to be organizers and find the way from the ground up to take on the Trump administration and the fascist regime that's basically taking over the country right now. The Women's March wasn't an accident. You were an organizer in New York. You've been doing this for a very long time. We were talking about it off camera, how you haven't had a break in years at this point. What's the significance of having that experience and getting involved at the local level as we move forward past this moment?
You know, I started organizing 20 years ago, and I started as a youth advocate. And I was working with young people that were formerly incarcerated. And ultimately, I was chosen by Harry Belafonte, who is the founder of the Gathering for Justice that I'm the executive director of. But what it allowed me to do is it allowed me to actually see some wins in my community, to build a community. When you organize locally, you see where the gaps are. You also understand the importance of building within community. And so for us in New York City, we're organizing around police brutality. We're organizing around the special prosecutor, around bringing awareness to the injustices of the criminal justice system, which allows us to use a multi-pronged approach, right? Not only do we do rallies or marches, but we're also working on policy. We're organizing and building new activists. So all the years of organizing and the journey and the preparation and the mistakes had prepared us to organize and be intentional within the Women's March. We knew that this march could not just be against Donald Trump, that we had to march for something. So we put together a policy platform, bringing in experts from different fields of different issues to look at how their issues intersect through a gender lens. We were intentional about diversity, right? Making sure that everybody felt that there was a lane for them. And so we developed a table that would then go out and make sure that we were inclusive, that we were diverse, and making sure that if we were occupying the table or we were at the table, we needed to get up so that somebody else who was the most marginalized was also at the table. So it takes a lot of years. It takes a lot of digging deep. Organizing in New York, I remember going to every borough to do listening sessions, right? To hear from the people, to understand what their grievances were, but also to think about solutions. And also, I think it's about building strategic partnerships with people, and that's what we have in New York City. And so we were able to take that model from Justice League NYC and bring it into the Women's March on Washington.
Because so many women are encouraged now and they want to organize at the local level, what are some of those lessons? Just basic lessons of the mistakes that were made along the way and maybe some of the best tips.
I think sometimes some of the mistakes we make are making assumptions about communities, thinking that we are the experts. I think for me, it's about facilitating a process, understanding that the experts are already in the room. Those that are living and impacted by different issues are the ones that we should elevate their voices. There's a saying of those that are the most impacted and the ones that are also are the closest. Those that are closest to the problem are the closest to the solution, right? And so it's important that we understand that not all the time do we have, a thorough understanding of the community, but we need to listen a lot more. And that's what's happening right now at this convention. There are white women who have felt as though, they feel guilty, right, for making mistakes. But we're saying, how do you move beyond that? How do you listen? How do you learn? How do you not wait until something happens to you or impacts you in a negative way, but that you have compassion for other communities? We cannot be silent. We talk often about silence is violence. We cannot be silenced when we see other communities being impacted negatively by policies and we are silent. We have to actually stand up. And so a lot of the work that I see myself doing with Tamika Mallory and Linda Sarsour in New York is around ensuring that when we're working with young people are at the table. When we're working with people that are impacted or mass incarceration, we are bringing people who are impacted by incarceration to the table. So it's not just us preaching to the choir, although you do have to preach to the choir in order for them to continue to sing, but you also have to, speak to those that don't have the same vision and mission as you. You have to meet them where they're at and champion them to their cause. And I think we saw that in the Women's Convention, or actually the Women's March, is that people did not want to talk about race. And we were asking them to have courageous conversations. And those conversations are happening here at the Women's Convention as we speak.
What I love about this convention is that there's a space for everybody, number one, and you're having those courageous conversations. You're almost forced to face that discomfort, but it's what makes you woke. It's what makes you understand and feel empathy for the other people. And I love that there's an array of everything from Medicare for all to how to confront your whiteness across the board with all the different sessions, which brings me to the Unity Principles. Can you explain what the Unity Principles are and the significance of it?
Yeah, so we made sure that, I don't know if many people know the story, but the initial conversation within the Women's March was, where's the permit? So when we were asked, the permit for the march, the location. And a lot of people were asking that. When we were having conversations to bring partners on, I was on a conference call at 8 in the morning with 80 organizations, and they're like, well, the march sounds great, but do you all have a permit? And so every minute of every day, we're like, what? The permit is a process. But then once we secured the permit and we were able to inform the world that we got the permit in DC, the conversation shifted from where's the permit to what are we marching for? Although thousands of women had already signed up after the election, after Donald Trump won, to march on Washington, right? But we didn't say that. What we said is I remember contacting Linda. I said, Linda, we need to create some policy points. People want to know, what are we marching for? And so initially we thought about it and we're like, okay, women's rights, a lot of women care about reproductive justice. They care about equal pay. But then that erases so many other women, right? Because we as women, and particularly women of color, we are not monolithic. We live in different communities. We are impacted by different issues. And so how could we actually bring people to understand that they can bring themselves whole into this conversation versus having to eliminate a piece of themselves? And so we organized and we brought people together and we really thought about how we can, what does it mean in regards to criminal justice reform when women are being shackled while they're giving birth, right? What does it mean as it pertains to immigration reform, as mothers are being stripped away from their communities? So we were extremely intentional about the points of unity, which are policy points. So points of unity, meaning we as women can actually come together to agree that women deserve these rights in these different issues. And so that's the reflection of this convention. It's the reason why you are able to participate in a conversation around immigration reform, Muslim ban, the plenaries. The plenary this morning was about intersectionality that I was able to moderate. And so people are feeling inspired. They're feeling as though they're learning something from this convention that maybe they never thought about. When we talk about feminism, right? Oftentimes we're like, okay, well, my feminism is about me wanting to make sure that women have equal rights. Well, what about, someone who doesn't necessarily have rights at all? And so we are shifting the conversation, we're creating entry points, and it's important that we continue to educate these women so that they could go back to their communities, right, on a local level and make change there.
What's next?
We are winning. In 2018, we are going to make sure that everybody here has the tools that they need to go back, to get out the vote. or to run for office. And we're going to take back Congress and the Senate and local elections. And so that's what's next for now. But there's so much more that we're building off of. It's not just going to happen in 2018. We need to continue to build collective power. We need to continue to provide an opportunity for women and individuals who are committed to women's rights as human rights to network, and also provide trainings.
Carmen, it's a pleasure. Thank you for creating this space for all of us and for helping facilitate these conversations and for this next wave of feminism, whether
Yes.
it's fourth or fifth. Or
I know, I keep on saying, I know,
It's hard
is
to-
it the fourth or fifth? No, because I
I know.
studied Chicana feminism, and so I know that was the third wave. So yeah, we definitely are going to figure it out. And we welcome everybody. We also talked about including men in the process. They need to understand there's a role for them in this space as well.
If we want to win elections, we need to have men in Senate, men in Congress, Republicans maybe even, understanding that they've got to be our allies in this fight.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.